And we are on. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to my interview series, How to Turn Fear into Confidence That Creates Cash, and how to create freedom while weathering the storm. And of course, the series was inspired by the current situation. There are a lot of people that are feeling afraid, they have anxiety, there are financial issues. So that was the inspiration for this series. And I'm very excited today about my speaker. I have with me Bev Flaxington, and I actually just read her book about, understanding other people. And so Bev is a human behavior coach. I'm going to have her introduce herself, but I almost got dizzy reading more about her, because you are so many things, Beth. You are like a hypnotist. You teach entrepreneurship 101. You are a Reiki master. I mean, is there something? You're a professor. You're an author. Is there something you don't do? I mean, tell me a little bit more. I mean, that's exciting. You have such a wonderful background. And tell us a little bit about yourself this morning.
Well, thank you. I am very excited to be here. I'm so excited about this series that you're doing for people. I think that this is just what's needed, and it's great. So I do have an interesting background. I'm a perfect example of somebody who, wants to do lots of things, and so I just do them all. I do have a corporate background. I spent a lot of years in the investment business, and I still do consulting work to that industry. I am a certified hypnotherapist, so I work a lot with people on anxiety, on stress, on life change. And I am a college professor. I went back in 2008, actually, to my own alma mater in Boston to teach undergraduate and now graduate students on managing teams, managerial skills, leadership, entrepreneurship. But very importantly, I've also raised 3 kids. The youngest is 16, so I'm a mom too. And and I do a lot of animal rescue work. So we have, 12 or 13 here right now. And I volunteer every week. So yeah, so I definitely have the attitude that you want to do it, just go do it.
You're a woman of all trades. I love it. I love it. So that is wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. And I actually can't wait to read your next book. I also saw you wrote something that caught my attention. It was Make the Shift. And so I thought, okay, when I saw that, that also would be perfect for people to learn more about, because right now there is so much anxiety, and how do we make that shift? And I know that when I read about it, Make the Shift is about, it stands for specifying the desired outcome. And that speaks to me also because I'm all about vision and vision coaching. And to me, a desired outcome, that's my vision. So that might be something that could help people too. But let's just start out with some of the tips you have. How would you address now, how would you help people or women that are sitting at home right now, and they might have lost their job, they're feeling fear, uncertainty? What would you tell them to start with?
And I think it's such an important place to start, because, none of this sort of work that I do, that you do, I think, has to negate the reality that this is a difficult time for people. And there are real issues that people are dealing with. I had a client yesterday I spoke with. She has a young child at home, and she said, right now I just feel like I'm a failure at everything. I can't give him the attention, right? I can't do play dates with him. I can't focus on my work. So I think the first step really is to acknowledge it really is okay to be having a bit of an emotional reaction to what's happening. But what you don't want to do is get stuck in it. You don't want to wallow in it. So the first important step, to your point, is to figure out what would success look like to you? And start small, right? Don't say, well, I've got to get this amazing job, or I've got to, have all this money put away, or what would be a reasonable outcome that would be a place to start? And maybe it's just, I would like to get to a place where I'm getting a little bit more me time in the midst of all of this, or I'm getting a little bit more outside time or exercise, or my husband and I, my significant other, we're not fighting as much. So pick something that could be accomplished and just start there. Just start there.
And with that feeling of accomplishment, I guess we do gain some confidence, right? And even if it's something small.
I have a concept I like to talk a lot about, which is the idea of chunking. So I think what we do is we set ourselves up for all these things we're supposed to do. We started out, I talked to you about all these things that I do, but the reality is I didn't do all of them in one fell swoop. I didn't do all of them to say, oh, I'm going to accomplish this and this and this. I'll take a very good example. When I wanted to write my first book that you referenced, I had taught a graduate class on dealing with difficult people. And the students came to me at the end and they said, you have to get this information out to the masses. Everyone needs to know this. So I said, well, how am I going to do that? Let me write a book. But I came back and I thought, how is that even possible? I run a business. My kids were a lot younger at the time. I'm teaching. And then I came up with this idea of chunking. I said, well, what if I was to just start to think about the steps that are involved with writing a book? And I could get them to be so small and so specific that then I could start to put them on my calendar and make progress. And so I think you nailed it, because I started then to make progress. And I'm looking out and I'm thinking, this could take me months. But once I got the wins, the feeling of excitement of, okay, I did this, now I did this, then I was able to stay on track and do it. So I think we just sometimes set ourselves up by thinking we've got to take it all on at once. No, if you can think about the smaller things, the wins, then you start to get momentum.
I love that. Celebrate the wins. That's beautiful. I actually have a little passion planner at home. It's a calendar. It's very old fashioned, I know, but that calendar actually asks me every month, what did you accomplish? What went well? What was working? What was not working? And then it will ask me, what is it that I want to accomplish this coming month? And it's actually asking me to journal. It's asking me to celebrate my wins. I love that. And you are right. That is something that creates confidence. That's a beautiful. That's really good advice. So I love that.
But you've keyed on another one of my favorite things. So years ago, I never was a calendar person. Like I always wanted to be, I wanted to journal. I would write things on 3x5 cards that I wanted to remember. But when I started this whole idea of chunking, I thought, there's got to be a way that keeps me on track. So I am such a big proponent of the calendar process. Now, you can do it old-fashioned hard copy. I actually like that because you carry it around. You can put it in an Outlook. You can put it in a phone. But there is something, I call it magical, about identifying what that step is and then writing it down so that you commit to it. Because let's just say that I decide next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to get out for a walk. I just need some me time. And then life intervenes and something happens and I can't do it. But it's on my calendar. We then do have the tendency to try to find another place to move it to rather than forget all about it. So that act of writing something down, having an organized place where we keep things, it sounds so simple, but most people don't do it. And when you do start doing it, you realize this is a way for me to stay on path. So I do it now with even, let's say there is something that's a bigger thing. I don't know, I'll use an example, but let's say I want to plan a family party. You could think of that as one accomplishment, right? We now are allowed to be outside. We can be 6 feet away. So maybe I can have 5 or 6 members of my family. But then I need to chunk what's involved with doing that. Am I going to serve food? Where do I need to call? What's the money that I need? So it's this idea that we take every event in life and we kind of break it down. So I'm out of a job. The idea of job hunting is overwhelming to people. And it isn't. My oldest daughter was laid off in this, so I'm living it.
Yeah.
And I have to help her with, let's just take steps in the process. What can you do today? What can you do tomorrow? So I think there's something so important with take the pressure off. You don't have to get to wherever it is. You just have to make progress to it. But calendaring is a key part of the process.
That is beautiful. And what are your thoughts? You just made me think. Sometimes I do have a calendar and I have to-do lists, but I ignore the tasks, just what you just said. But then what I now do, I take good old-fashioned little sticky notes and I write down 3 things that I want to accomplish. And then I channel one of my former coaches, Michael Strassner, who always would say, be your word. So I love the integrity aspect in, getting things done and taking these little steps, but then committing to those. So what are your thoughts on that? Being your word.
So I love, I love to talk about to-do lists because we love them in our culture. We all do them and they're important. But there's 2 things about to-do lists. One is the prioritization, which is what you're doing. So you're looking at this to-do list and you're saying, I have 3 things that are the most important. So I think that's an important thing too, because it helps you kind of get in touch with your values, what you really care about. And so, let's say I can't sleep at night because I'm so worried about the job situation. Well, but then I also might need to do something for my own mental and physical health. And so when I look at those priorities, I really have to think about what's most important to me. Okay, so values. Second thing is the chunking process. We tend to have things on the to-do list that are big things. And then we get to the end of our day and we think, holy cow, I really needed to take care of that, but I didn't. So that gift that you can give yourself of accomplishment, I always like to tell this story. There was a psychologist in the 1920s, Dr. Zygarnik. You can look this up, real person, Russian psychologist, woman. And she set out to study what it is that caused us stress. So think about this. It's the 20s. There's no texting. There's no phones. There's no emails. What she learned was it was unfinished tasks. The more you kept putting on someone, the more physiologically that their stress level rose. So think about that for a mother, for a working woman, for potentially, the breadwinner. It's allergy season here in New England. Or a potential breadwinner in the house who we are, our lives are unfinished tasks. There is always something, right? Our attention. So having something that's my priority, that I value, and that I can look to say, I have done that is just really important and really valuable. And I'd say especially for women, because we're pulled in so many directions.
Yes, and I think it's important not to feel guilty, right? Not to feel that shame when you don't get something done. So your chunking will actually make it more accessible, right? To have that feeling of accomplishment.
Exactly.
So because what we want to avoid really is that feeling of shame and guilt. So we want to step into that confidence. And I think that your chunking and, will actually put you into a much more joyful state. Like, yes, I got it done. that is beautiful.
One of the things I often ask, especially women, it can apply to men too, but is this idea of balance, right? We're supposed to be in balance. Our kids should be happy. We should be doing great with the job. We should be, taking care of the neighbors, whatever it is. And the idea that what we really want to get to is focus. It's not balance. It's focus. So what you're doing at that point in time should be your entire focus. So if you're with your children, then that's what you're doing. If you've chunked things and this is on your calendar, this is what I'm doing. Because otherwise we just live perpetually feeling like we're pulled and nobody's happy. And so it's really also that it sounds, it's a bit of mindfulness. It's a bit of mindfulness. And to kind of get into your own, and right now with everything that's happening, mindfulness is a key element so that whatever it is I'm doing, I'm focusing on that. I'm not, the computer's dinging behind me, there's emails coming in, kids are out here, they want their lunch, whatever it is. My focus has to be, here's where I am though right now. Otherwise, nobody's getting what they need.
That's such a beautiful example you just brought, because I know so many women right now, they're struggling, and focus obviously will bring you more joy and confidence, being in the present moment, and having the kids at home right now and having all these distractions, that's a challenge for a lot of women. So how do you deal with that right now? You got the kids at home, you got the computers, you got electronics, you have the news, right? The news that are like terrifying. So how do you deal with that?
So some of this really is, you do have to give yourself opportunities to disconnect from a little bit of it. Honestly, I think we all in some ways have to be able each day to take those mental breaks. It could be hours that you go without, the reality is that yes, there's a lot happening, and also things are not going to change that much if you actually take a break from it for a day. Or let's say this client I was talking to had a younger child, and she was just absolutely as stressed as can be. And I said, why not in some ways like decide I'm going to ignore the work for the moment. I'm going to take him outside. I'm going to run him all over the yard. Thankfully, the weather is improving a little bit in most places. And I'm going to wear him out, and then we'll come in, and then, okay, now I can focus on my work. But trying to entertain him on the floor over here, but then also focusing on my work on the computer. I mean, we know that it doesn't work. And so you've got to almost find a little bit of pockets of, okay, what can I do over here to give some really dedicated attention so that maybe I can buy some time over here to be able then to give this my attention. But I think we have to keep checking in with ourselves. I'm very aware if I'm reading, say, I like to be on Facebook. I like to connect and see what friends are doing, right? But I catch myself if I read too many things where I'm so distressed, I have to say, okay, you know what? I've got to take a break from that. Let me call a couple of my friends on the phone instead of reading all these things that somebody is posting. So we have to really be able to be aware of what it is, back to that mindfulness, what choices we're making, and say, I'm only human. I used to have a saying with my kids, especially when they were younger. I would tell them, I can do one thing at a time. I can do one thing at a time. And so right now, I need to finish this, and then I can turn my attention to you. So what can you do while you're waiting for me? Now, if you have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, it's obviously harder to do that than but I started it when my kids were like 5 and 6. And, you know, and they would, and even now as older kids, they will sometimes say to me, I know, Mom, you can do one thing at a time. Like, yep, that's it. So,
I love that. So focus is critical right now. So what I heard you say, obviously, is getting things accomplished, chunking, and now focus. And one thing I want to know about also is now there are a lot of women out there and also men, they might be without a job, right? So there are these financial concerns. And how do I create cash with all that fear going on? Of course, we have tasks, we have certain methods that will make us feel more confident, but how do I take that next step into that mode of creation?
so I like to think about the fact that, you know, no matter what is happening, there is always money circulating. There's always money circulating. Things will shift, okay? So in certain environments, money is circulating over here. In other environments, it might be circulating over there. So one of the key things is to try to think about where is the money right now? And so a lot of it is in home-based sorts of things, helping people be able to navigate through this, virtual, right? Phone calls, this sort of thing. So if you think about, okay, what's happening right now? First of all, you want to think about where is the money coming from? That's number one. Number two is you want to think about, are there other ways of generating income? So I run a business, but one of my main things is to make sure that there's other avenues for money coming in, because you don't know if something happens over here, what else could you do over there? So it could be time too to look at what other sorts of skills do you have? We tend to associate ourselves, right, with only the job we do. But what other sorts of skills do you have? What do you enjoy doing? What sorts of hobbies do you like to do? I have a client who had a passion for nutrition and now has started to be able to, over Zoom, over the phone, help people who now are, you know, we used to have the freshman 15 when you went away to college. Now it's the quarantine 15, right? Everyone's putting on weight because the one place we can go on a regular basis is the kitchen. And so people want some help with, how do I make good choices? Now, this was not her main business, but she's been able to turn it into that. So I think that, so where is money circulating? What's still happening? What are my skills? What are my hobbies? And can I maybe pivot, right? They help me pivot.
Yeah.
Can I maybe think about a different way that I might be able to generate income?
I love that. So this might actually be an opportunity this time, right? To think about what is my passion, even if it's like in your case, and in my case, there might be a long list and we're going, oh, which one? But it's a time right now to go within and find your passion. I love that. I love that. So I'm a big fan of taking this time and making that list and then thinking, oh, maybe I can do something with that. Okay, so I have one more question for you that I'll ask everybody, and it's directly to fear. So what would the 80-year-old Bev tell the current Bev in regards to fear? What kind of message would she have for you?
So I would say, thankfully, I've learned it a little bit younger in life, but it really is the idea of not wasting the energy that you need to be able to move yourself to a positive place on fear. And I spent a lot of my younger life worrying. I come from a family of warriors. They have perfected the art of worrying.
Oh.
So I did spend a lot of my time and energy younger worrying, but what if this happens here? What if that goes there? And thankfully, I did get to a point where I thought, this is depleting my energy. And so the 80-year-old me would say, think about the hours, the days, the weeks, the months, the years that you wasted with something that the worry didn't help you. So it's so important, I think, I wish someone had told me earlier that it's an energy issue. We are in human bodies. We have limited energy, okay? And if I use that energy to deplete, I don't have it for focusing and doing the things that I need to do. So I would tell myself, why are you making choices that actually take from you rather than give to you?
That was beautiful. What a beautiful message you gave to yourself and to our audience. Thank you. So now, where can people find you? And I know you have a free gift for our audience. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if people want to access, I have put together some tips for how is it that you can become more mindful, de-stress during this difficult time. And I also have a bit of a framework that we'll give people for free on if you're dealing with someone difficult right now. These are tough times. Not everybody loves being shut in with their family. Not everybody is enjoying conversations with, people remotely. And so what are some ways maybe to shift some of those difficult conversations and maybe enhance those relationships? So we'll provide both to your listeners. And you can find my books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And the website is the-collaborative.com if people want to come and visit us and see what else is available.
And then you also have bevflaxington.com, right? Isn't that a good place to find you? Or what would be the best? So we will obviously include the link to find you in the emails that we are sending out. So is that the one to find you?
It's the-collaborative.com.
Gotcha.
I do tweet at Bev Flaxington. So you can also, and I try to put things out every day, just ideas for people. So yes.
That is beautiful. So thank you for that. So I really enjoyed having coffee with you this morning. So thank you so much. What an inspiring woman you are. You definitely are a woman of all trades, and you made me feel better also about myself, because I'm all over the place sometimes. I have so many different interests, and you make it okay. And actually that might be helpful during times like this where we have to decide, okay, maybe there's something else I can do.
Yes.
Maybe pivot. Which direction can I go, right?
Exactly.
So thank you so much. This was beautiful. And I'm certain our paths will cross again. And thank you so much for your contribution.
My pleasure. Blessings to you.
Thank you.